John here with Art of the Supplement, and I wanted to invite you to our brand new Facebook group, Art of the Supplement Nation. We've assembled the industry's top experts to bring you the best answers to all your insurance restoration questions. It's on Facebook, not MySpace. Delete that. You don't need MySpace anymore. Check it out. Facebook.
Met Matt and Nanju several years ago. Just really awesome guys as far as giving the information, really making the industry better. They care about the contractors. They care about, really how the whole process works. And then they're very honest as far as when we have a claim to give us their honest opinion as far as whether or not we want to pursue that or not. And then once they, receive that claim, they really do a great job at following up with the homeowners, making sure that they're representing our company, because at the end of the day, our client is trusting us to put them in touch with the best in the industry.
All right, what's up, everybody? Lead meteorologist John Choquette here for live coverage, basically update here with this derecho event. We are calling it derecho. It has been racing pretty much since Omaha with a large, destructive swath of intense wind damage. We are seeing more strong wind reports coming in from this wind event than either of the hurricanes have happened so far this year. So we maxed out. The strongest wind gust was 87 miles an hour from Isaias. And right now, from what I saw just a few minutes ago, the strongest wind gust to officially be reported was just north of Cedar Rapids of, let's see if we can get the pop up on the screen for you guys, of 100, it won't show up, but of 112 miles per hour here just north of Cedar Rapids. And Hiawatha getting 100-mile-per-hour winds. We are seeing lots and lots and lots of really intense damage. Trucks getting tipped over. We're seeing roofs getting ripped off, shingles blown everywhere. A lot of large structures even getting destroyed. This is a no-joke system, and it is about to enter Davenport now with strong winds. Let's see what the latest got. Ranging between right around 70 miles an hour heading into the Davenport area. We'll switch over now to the radar, and there you go. You got the animated radar for you here. We'll just turn that off, and instead of having the normal radar and correlation coefficient, we're talking about wind. So this is going to be the velocity. It's going to be your wind speed. It's going to be a little messy. We're getting right next to the radar, but that does give us a good idea now that the initial wind is happening currently moving into Davenport. So here's Davenport right here. You can see that precip, and with that, the strong winds. So you get the initial gust front. So basically you can see a pretty intense, scary looking cloud off to the west racing east. And with that, right when that rain's about to start, you can get a strong gust of wind. It seems like they've been averaging between 60 and 70 miles an hour, and then even stronger winds when the stronger precip comes through. Just looking at, let's see, what is it? Right next to the radar. So only about 100 feet up. The radar here in Davenport is recording about 80-mile-per-hour winds right where you see it, right in here. So the north side, oh, there it goes, like right over the, looks like it's going right over the radar. Hopefully our radar doesn't die. We've had some issues here so far today. It turns out a lot of sources of information we get come from Iowa, and we've been in the dark a little bit for a couple not mapping related things. But it looks like Davenport currently, right now, everywhere to the west of I-74, you are experiencing winds over 60 miles an hour. Again, I just looked a moment ago, just to the west of the airport, it was reading only about 100 feet above the ground, about 80-mile-per-hour winds. So it's likely that that's mostly mixing to the surface. 100 feet isn't too high up. You're probably getting in the 70s in the northern sections of Davenport, and likely in most of Davenport as well. When we're really close to the radar like this, sometimes the velocities get a little messy, a lot of noise, but just based on what we've been seeing so far today, the southern end of this intense derecho seems to be averaging 65 to 75 mile per hour winds. Further to the north, however, over by where Cedar Rapids was, this area here where we're meeting with, you see that big spin, look at that going through, that's where you're getting your over 100 mile per hour winds. This thing is racing east, east-northeast, as we are heading generally towards the state of Illinois. Now, it looks like we're getting some tornado warnings now, so we're getting also, along with the derecho, we're getting other storms trying to form up here in western sections of Illinois, and then to the southwest of Madison, Wisconsin, where we're seeing some tornado warnings as these storms are kicking up with the derecho. So basically you have these storms kind of kicking out in front of where that derecho is. So it's kind of coming up like this, and it's almost like a warm front where these storms are firing up. This is your best chance for any hail today, like we mentioned before. If you watched our forecast this morning, we had, quarter, half dollar size hail. That's your best chance of seeing that. Wouldn't be surprised if over by Pearl City here, there's probably some hail with this, some quarter size hail. But for the most part, the main focus is the wind and also the tornado threat here across near Darlington. It looks like you got a little bit of a couplet right there to the west of Darlington. Any tornadic activity, this is going to be any sort of long track crazy tornadoes. You're going to be quick spin ups. You're honestly probably going to see more damage coming out of this derecho that's now starting to rip through far eastern sections of Iowa, and then we're going to be moving pretty quickly here to the east into the state of Illinois. This is going to be getting to Chicago in the next couple hours. This is wasting no time at all to get across the state of Iowa, and then eventually we're going to get to Chicago here. And again, it's going pretty much due east towards Chicago. I'd say is very likely now, almost a certainty, that sections of Chicago Metro are going to see winds over 65 miles an hour, possibly even over 75 miles an hour. This is, again, no joke storm. We're seeing multiple reports of winds over 90, and even some reports over 100, 106 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, 112. Those are all ones that I've seen fairly recently here. Across Davenport, we now have the strongest winds are likely with the higher precip that we're seeing here just now moving into Davenport. All of Davenport is going to be impacted with this. And again, not going to be surprised if the entire city sees 65 to 75 mile per hour winds as this continues racing very fast to these. This is going about highway speeds here around 70 miles an hour. This is going to knock out power for probably the majority of the city of Davenport. It's definitely knocked out power for the majority of the city of Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Ames, let's see, where else? Marshalltown. We're seeing some wild videos coming out of there, well over 90 mile per hour winds in Marshalltown. Okay, 75 mile per hour winds at the National Weather Service office. So like we had mentioned, if you just, let's bring that back up here. Let's bring the radar back up. We were talking about this. I was mentioning that you can see right there. See the little purple area? That's an area of 80 mile per hour winds. What the radar is detecting about 100 feet above the surface. Now, obviously, as things get close to the ground, it's going to be friction. It's going to slow the wind down just a little bit. Only about 100 feet up, chances are there's not going to be that much of a decrease in wind speed. So instead of being about 80, it's only about 5 mile per hour less, 75 mile per hour at the National Weather Service office. So that's an official observation, and that's going to be at the airport as well. I believe the airport is right by the weather office. So everywhere, probably just north of downtown Davenport, 75 mile per hour winds confirmed. Widespread 60 to 75 mile per hour winds across all of Davenport, and that is racing east. It's going to be impacting Hampton, LeClaire very soon in the next 5-10 minutes. Again, highway speeds. We're going this thing's moving east to 70 miles an hour. We're going to be getting to Chicago in just a couple hours here. And then after that, it won't be on Lake Michigan super long, and it'll be off to Michigan. So things are moving quick here, folks. We're going to jump back over to our overview, see if we have any other reports coming in. Looks like we're seeing some strong winds now coming out of these storms forming off to the north. It's almost like a secondary area of strong winds forming north of the main section with winds upwards of, we gotta keep coming back over here. It's around 60 miles an hour. Lots of power outages in Wisconsin, places like Platteville, and now over here by Darlington, you got that tornado warning. Even if there isn't a tornado, there's going to be very strong straight line winds with this. This is knocking cars off highways, tipping over 18-wheelers. We're ripping lots of shingles off roofs. This is uprooting massive trees, snapping them at their bases. This is a big wind event. Much more like, this damage is going to be much more like seeing something of a hurricane making landfall versus just your run-of-the-mill thunderstorm. So over here by Cedar Rapids, we have a lot of wind damage reports coming in. You got that 112 mile per hour wind gusts. We have 100 mile per hour in Hiawatha. 2-foot diameter trees, shingles blown off house, power's out, several trees down, widespread tree damage in Cedar Rapids with very high winds, numerous power outages, damage to mobile homes in the area, intersections of highways 13, 151, estimates of wind around 90 miles an hour. So your strongest winds, again, they're going to probably be up here. So it's basically one giant low pressure center. It's all kind of spinning like this. Right in this area, that is where your strongest winds are going to be. Your best chance seeing 100 mile per hour winds plus. That is moving off to the east. Let me just give you a circle here. I didn't want to do that. It's this area moving off to the east here. So places like Rockford, Rochelle, and eventually towards the northern sections of the Chicago Metro, like Evanston, St. Charles, Lombard, DeKalb. All of that is where currently, anyway, the strongest winds are going to be heading. Now this whole line here, this is all dangerous winds. We're getting consistent wind gusts over 60 miles an hour, upwards 75 mile per hour wind gusts just come in a moment ago. As far south as Muscatine, 75 mile per hour wind gusts. So we're getting over 70 mile per hour winds plus all up and down along this thing. This pretty much spans the entirety of if we were to take this and just move it to the east here, it would span the entirety of the Chicago area. So this is going to be a widespread event racing across the I-70 corridor. Hit Rochelle, Rockford. These are going to be impacted in the next hour or so. Moving quick. Moving quick here, guys. Look how far out these severe thunderstorm warnings are going. They're going 2-3 counties out. They're moving so fast. Wind for 90. Yeah, these are warned for 90 mile per hour winds. Significant tree damage. If you're in a large vehicle like a 18-wheeler or even just like a really big SUV, it's good. This is the type of wind to knock you off the road. This is no joke, guys. Well, it's just trying to thumb through here again. 70 mile per hour winds coming in from Iowa City as well. Multiple transformers down, no power. Yeah, 69 knots before power went out. There's going to be obviously quite a lot of power outages with this, which is going to also make it a little challenging to, yes, a lot of reports are not going to come in right away. So now we have the main line. The leading edge of this wind is now crossing over into Illinois. You can see right here where you got that yellow showing up. That's your main gust front pushing to the east with the precipitation. So as that rain is falling, you're able to get the wind to mix to the surface a little easier. Sometimes, like when you get a thunderstorm, you get that gust of wind, like 20 minutes later, the rain comes, and the wind's usually not that crazy strong. Well, the wind is coming pretty much just maybe seconds before the rain. And you're going to be getting that big gust of wind, the rain's going to come, and then it's going to look like a hurricane outside. We've seen some videos of that where the 100 mile per hour winds, you have no visibility, and it is really ripping, tearing things up. So definitely, you are in the path of this. This is going to be, again, a pretty destructive event here with very strong winds. I'm going to check in on this storm by Freeport, Illinois, see if it's making any hail. Looks like a little bit of hail here. I wouldn't be surprised if this has like a couple quarters in it. Nothing wild with again, hail is not the big story with this event here today, guys. Like I think in Davenport, if there's any hail at all, it'd be pea size, and even then, I don't think there's any hail in this currently. This is all very heavy rains and very powerful winds as the storm continues to race to the east. We're already getting through Davenport. This thing's going to be through Davenport in the next couple minutes here as the widespread winds continue. This is a citywide event. There might be a couple localized spots, maybe north of Highway 6, where the winds might have been a little bit stronger. But other than that, it's going to be pretty widespread. Trees are going to be down everywhere. Power lines getting knocked down. And large percentages of all these cities that have been impacted in Iowa have likely lost power or are losing power currently as these storms are racing off to the east very quickly. Let's see. Okay, we got 68-mile-per-hour gust from Rock Island, Illinois, from another ASOS station. There we go. We got a quarter report. So there was a little bit of hail. Again, well, wouldn't shock me to get a couple, again, low-end, marginally severe hail reports kind of scattered about probably from where we just got that report all the way east as this thing keeps chugging along here. I'm going to roll it back. I think this goes back about 3 hours. And we can see how quickly this has gone. Look at all these wind reports. That's when you know this is a no-joke storm. Looks like it really kind of got its act together. About 65-mile-per-hour winds. This was back in near Omaha, and then it really has gone to town, and it is not slowing down here, folks. We are racing. We're going to be entering Illinois next, and then this is going to be heading into the Chicago area in the next couple hours. We just got another National Weather Service just put Storm Prediction Center put out another discussion here. Let's see what they say. It's an update to the severe thunderstorm watch for Chicago. You know, particularly dangerous situations, severe thunderstorm watch. These don't come out too often. It's like the tornado watches, but instead of tornado risks, it's not much just straight line winds. Potential for widespread destructive damaging wind gusts of 70 to over 100 miles an hour, and perhaps tornado 2 will continue as the line of storms move quickly eastward towards northern Illinois. This line will likely impact Chicago between 3 and 3:30 p.m. Central Time. So just a couple hours from now. It's currently 1:38 p.m. Central Time. That's 2 hours from right now is likely when this is going to be impacting Chicago. The bow echo, so that's we call the system. Let me move this out of the way for you folks. Bow echo over eastern Illinois, Iowa has developed a comma head structure in its northern blah blah blah. Basically, very, very organized system with measured winds of 97 to 112 miles per hour recently in Cedar Rapids. Let me just thumb through. I'm going to skip over a lot of the more technical stuff here. Basically, confidence remains high of widespread, destructive, damaging winds, sweep eastward across northern Illinois, and visit over the next hour or two. And if it holds steady, we're going to have that strong, damaging wind threat in the Chicago area between 3 and 3:30 p.m. So that's the main reason we've been talking about this here, guys. We very rarely make our wind maps 5-star maps outside of hurricanes. I don't think we've ever made a 5-star wind map outside of a hurricane, at least since we've started making them. It's a little more challenging. You need it to be very widespread, very intense. You know, it takes a lot more strong winds to really do damage versus hail. And if this manages to maintain its strength as it blows through Chicago, I think it'll be our first 5-star wind map that is not a hurricane. Typically, hurricanes end up being 5-star maps, but it'd be very impressive because, again, we've never done a 5-star map for wind that hasn't been a hurricane. So it just shows the severity of this system so far. Well, we have really, Iowa is probably, I'd love to see what the power outage numbers are across Iowa right now. If anyone knows that or able to know what Iowa's light and power company is, if they have their outage tracker, I'm sure it's getting kind of out of hand now as this thing is really, it's impacted a lot of the more densely populated parts of the state as well. So again, this is going to be, right now, it's ripped through Davenport with 75-mile-per-hour winds confirmed from the National Weather Service. It's going to move across western Iowa, or western Illinois, and into the Chicago area. Around 3 p.m. it should be getting to the western burbs here of Chicago, across DeKalb and points east. So probably by the time we get to 4 p.m., the system will end up being in Lake Michigan. It's going to race across the Chicago metro, and the north-south extent of this wind will cover the entirety of the metro, pretty much from the Wisconsin border down to south of, oh God, what's the name of that southernmost section of the Chicago metro? Is it south of Joliet? So this is going, Weather Channel are paying $280K. Yeah, thanks, Hunter. Yeah, so 280,000 people without power currently in Iowa, and that number is continuing to rise, I'm sure, as it's ripping through Davenport right now. So this is going to, again, keep moving off to the east. This whole line's making wind up to over 70 miles an hour. In the northernmost section, that is where your 90 to 100 plus mile per hour winds are going to be within what they call it the comma head. So this whole thing looks almost like a comma. Let me draw it out. So it's almost like, so that's where it is. And then right in here, that's where your strongest winds are going to be as this thing keeps racing east. Again, there's no real surprise in what direction it's going. It's not going to surprise anybody. It's not going to trip us up and go south. It's going to keep just going due east towards Chicago. We already have a warning out all the way to Rockford now, as they are trying to give people, the National Weather Service trying to give people as much heads up here, as this thing is moving very fast, and get people to get inside. Take it, if you're out, you live in this area, you want to make sure your lawn furniture is tied up and be put in the garage. Get your garbage cans out in your garage, or if you don't have a garage, you have some time to maybe tie them up. And if you're at work, well, it might blow away, as this is going to knock a bunch of stuff around and possibly even tear quite a bit of shingles off roofs and other stuff like that. So, yeah, this storm by Freeport's really trying to get its act together. We'll see if this ends up becoming a super sub. It's pretty close to Rockford as well. Well, we're getting all kinds of. Yes. Never seen a storm like this. Yeah, this is fairly unusual. We get derechos every year. We've gotten an unusual amount of them so far this year. I think we've had 5 or 6. This is for sure one of the strongest ones so far. I think the one that happened that went over the Rocky Mountains, that one had some insane winds, but also had peaks, 14,000 feet. You're going to get some strong wind 14,000 feet up. This is, blown through some cornfields and cities with strong winds. And yes, 112 mile per hour wind gusts near Hiawatha, Iowa, which is just north of Cedar Rapids. Cedar Rapids, I think, got around 90 mile per hour winds. And now that we're pulling away from the radar a little bit, we can actually see the winds a little easier. Honestly, just kind of waiting for that. You can see all the yellows and greens, pretty similar to the CCs, I guess. That's what you want to see if you want to see crazy winds. So it really highlights how strong these winds are. And since we are close to radar, this is pretty close to what's going to be happening at the surface. So the areas that are green are showing winds upwards of over 80 miles an hour. So this is your best bet of areas like near just to the east of like Cleveland and down by Green Rock. All this is winds around 75 miles per hour at the surface likely, and then further south scattering through with that winds ranging between 65 and 75 miles an hour, racing to the east. Giancio is going to be impacted in the next minute or two with the strong winds. Further to the north, even stronger winds, likely all these smaller towns here, like Preston, Miles, right along the river, Savannah, all these are going to get hit. There's probably over 80 mile per hour winds up here. And then looking at the storm over by Freeport, it's getting a bigger hail marker on it. I'm going to jump back. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this storm over Freeport, Illinois, that's heading in the general direction of Rockford, ends up dropping some hail, possibly possibly larger than quarter-size hail. If there's any storm that would be dropping bigger hail, it'd probably be this guy here. It's kind of on its own and really taken off here. But again, the main focus of this is going to be the wind. I know you're seeing all these little tornado icons showing up. Ignore these. The radar is getting overwhelmed by the wind here, so it keeps thinking there's tornadoes. It doesn't look like there's really any tornadic activity within the derecho line. This is straight line winds, powerful straight line winds. You might think it's a tornado, but all the winds are going to be blowing one way, west to east. Going to be knocking anything loose over, because this is no crazy wind. We got another report of wind coming out of 77 miles. So the Quad City Airport, they previously had a 68 mile per hour gust. Now it's 77 mile per hour gust. Like what I mentioned before, that initial gust is going to be 65 to 75 miles an hour, and then when you get into the main precip, this wind will get stronger, and that's where you're going to be getting those winds closer to 80 miles an hour. 77 mile per hour wind. So again, widespread. Whole city of Davenport, both sides of the river, you got winds over 70 miles an hour. Again, likely knocked out power for a good chunk of the city. And then it continued even far south as Muscatine. Lots of down trees. I mean, almost every report. Usually when we see down trees, we go, well, you know, you can knock some branches down at 50, but when we're hearing trees getting uprooted, and especially when they get snapped, like at the trunk, like, you know, about waist height, that's probably some real strong winds to take out the strongest part of a tree. So let's see. Again, it's trying to see if there's some pictures coming in here. Dang, what happened here? Golly. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of, I mean, even buildings getting collapsed in here. So this is pretty wild here, guys. I'd say now, as we are right now, a 4-star wind map for sure, as we have had damage across, damaging winds all the way from near Omaha. I haven't actually even really honestly checked to see like how strong those winds were in Omaha. I know they were around 65. That's usually, you know, strong, but nothing wild. But once we got to Des Moines, things got really spiraled out of hand over 80 mile per hour winds, and has extended all the way now into mostly into Illinois, as a lot of this is pulling out of Iowa. It's crossing the river right now, and it's going to now impact Illinois for the remainder of this afternoon. Expected time of arrival for Chicago around 3 o'clock Central Time. So it's, if you're watching this, maybe a little after the fact, not quite live. It's about 1:50 p.m. Central Time, so about a little over an hour. We're going to see this moving into the Chicago metro from west to east. Winds, I'd say I'm very confident now. We had a high chance for severe winds across Chicago this afternoon. I'm not saying an extreme chance because it's extremely likely now that this is going to impact with at least 60 mile per hour winds, which is the severe limits. 58 is the severe limits. I think we will be very easily get to that across a lot of the Chicago suburbs and possibly even into downtown Chicago itself. How hard will it hit Chicago Metro? It depends on if it can hold its strength as it is currently. Probably very hard. 75 mile per hour winds is going to do a lot of damage. There's no really like sugarcoating that. 75, 80 mile per hour winds is going to do a lot of damage across all the trees. Lots of tree damage. Knock power lines down. It's going to, I think, pull up shingles, probably blow off shingles. And then that's not even considering the fact that there can be, because we've had that so far on the northern section of this, winds in excess of 90 miles an hour. And 90 mile per hour wind plus is going to be very damaging for, I mean, that's hurricane force. All of this is making at least Category 1 hurricane force winds, possibly even stronger into the low end Category 2 hurricane force winds in areas where, you know, you don't see hurricanes. This is we're in the Great Lakes. Like this is kind of a high end, more rare wind event. Any damage reports yet? Yes, there's a fair amount across Iowa. We've been adding them to our map. We have a lot of pictures. We're checking out, trying to find. We're scouring social media. Don't have to look very hard. Been sending in our group chat here of seeing a lot of damage. I think over by Urbandale, there was an apartment complex, like all the shingles got ripped off the roof there. We're seeing lots of areas where the even commercial buildings, the top layer of the roof's getting ripped off. We're getting some buildings, some weaker buildings collapsing. A lot of farm, like the grain silos even getting knocked over. I'm trying to think of other stuff I've been seeing on here so far. Oh, I just got a picture coming in. Here we go. I guess I'll just bring it up to the camera and give you guys like an idea what we're seeing here. It looks terrible. No, the green. Point is, there's yeah, man, that's whole roofs getting ripped off. Good Lord. Yeah, this is doing some serious damage here, guys. This is some high-end wind. Again, we saw wind gusts of 112 miles an hour just north of Cedar Rapids. That is going to do damage. That is hurricane force winds, hurricane level winds. So, again, a very large, widespread swath. All of these little either get wind speeds or damage, and these are all coming in. I mean, obviously a handful of trees coming through. How much flooding should we expect? Asked Tom. I don't think there's going to be a ton of flooding with this. It's moving very fast. So here is, let me roll it back just an hour. This is 1 hour. We're moving quick. So it's going to rain real hard for a bit, but then it's going to quickly move out. So it's not going to sit and dump rain for hours or anything. So, you'll probably get like a quick inch or so of rain, but it'll be just minor street flooding that'll quickly go away once the rain passes. This isn't going to sit and dump rain for a long time. This is on the move. We're going to get it as soon as it shows up. It's going to almost just as quickly go away. So, let's see, weather damage. Flagpole bent over. Man, that's pretty good there in Davenport. Got 69 at Clinton Airport. So yeah, a lot of these more rural areas, the wind damage reports will come in a little bit later, come up after the fact, especially with power getting knocked out almost immediately. It's a little harder for things going in. Watch from northern Indiana, stay safe. Yes, northern Indiana, you guys will be down the way a little bit here. So once we get past Chicago, obviously things don't just stop. We'll have the northern section of it go over Lake Michigan, and then the west coast of Michigan will get impacted with the strong winds there. Of course, northern Indiana, pretty much anywhere north of, probably north of Lafayette is your best chance of seeing some pretty strong winds. Again, moving west to east here, guys. So it's right here, gonna go across, hit Chicago, and then probably towards South Bend, and then probably eventually Kalamazoo. It's gonna keep, again, we are in the Great Lakes, some of the most densely populated portions of the country. We got some big cities here that are gonna be getting impacted by this. Don't know about Detroit. Detroit's pretty far off to the east. We'll see how long this thing holds itself together. It's moving fast. So I think by the time we get past dinner time, we'll be already in Michigan. But this is gonna be a long afternoon, and I think we just got another wind update here. We got an 86 mile per hour wind gust from Davenport Airport. Whew, golly. Yeah, so 86. All right, so damn. Man, that's crazy. So over again, so at the airport, I mentioned that first gust, your first gust can be around 70 miles an hour, and that's gonna be no joke. It'll be right before the rain, right as the rain's starting. It's gonna really be ripping, and you're like, all right, so that's not too bad. Once the rain really gets going, you're in the middle of the storm, that's when you're gonna get the strongest winds. You had the initial gust in the 70s at the National Weather Service in Davenport, and we just got an update of 86 miles an hour at the airport in Davenport, and that is continuing moving east. So again, over 80 mile per hour winds, pretty common thing here. We're finding it almost every single major wind reading station that we have, all scattered across the country at most of the airports. We're consistently getting well over 70 miles per hour. 86 miles per hour in Davenport, that's going to be doing a fair bit of damage, probably knocking out power in most of the city. Lots of trees down, lots of power lines down, probably a fair amount of roof damage, and hopefully not too many trucks getting tipped over or anything, because that can start killing people. So I'm going to check back in. Yeah, that's one storm over by Rockford really doesn't want to, by Freeport, seems to really want to keep trying to get its act together more. Let me check on it from Chicago's radar. Yeah, it wants to do some more in the way of hail, but for the most part, yeah, look at this, guys. That's crazy. Look at this. This is all, we're starting to max out our system here. So this is wild. This is a lot of strong winds. Any hail getting produced out of the storm? So this section of the storm, for the most part, not really. You might get some pea-size hail. I think we had one report of some quarter-size hail way off to the north. That was pretty brief. There's mostly heavy rain and a ton of wind. Again, maybe just a little bit of pea-sized hail, but for the most part, there's almost no hail in this. This is almost all very strong, almost like a hurricane. You gotta think, if there's not really any hail in hurricanes, this is going to be wind, heavy rain, racing east, ton of lightning. Any chance for Kansas City? Well, this system, definitely not. It's far enough north from you. You're not going to see anything. Kansas City looks like you got some showers and storms trying to form possibly to your south, so that may keep Kansas City out of contention for this afternoon and evening. I know that's a story of it all. And there we go. Look at that. We got a 2-inch hail report. So we are seeing hail out of this sky here by Rockford. So in Freeport, this got a 2-inch hail report. Yeah, Freeport, Illinois. So getting some hail in here. This is not with this. So the derecho is not having almost no hail. This is a little supercell out ahead of it. These are the ones. This is the reason why I even had a hail possibility for today, because these big storms tend to fire off little guys out in front of it. So we're seeing 2-inch hail. Let me bring things over to our looking at hail. I haven't been looking too much at any hail parameter. Just been looking at wind here. You can see right there, storm forming. Look at that. Got a little bit. The CC's lower, and yeah, got an area lower CC's. So some 2-inch hail in Freeport. This is heading towards Rockford, so we may see some hail as well here across Illinois as Freeport. I don't know how big Freeport is. That's a decent sized little town there. So up to 2-inch hail, and that's gonna keep moving off to the east-northeast. It's gonna be heading towards Rockford, probably the northern sides of Rockford here in Winnebago County. And again, I don't think this will stay around for super long. Typically, the strong wind, a derecho event like this, likes to kind of take over and absorb all the power from the other storms. So eventually, this is gonna catch this guy. So I think once we get to probably about Rockford, it's not going to be doing too much beyond that. But I will load up the counties here for you guys. So just give me 1 second to get whoops. Oh no, I didn't want to do that at all. Yeah, thanks for checking us out. Shout out to our sponsors. I know we haven't had to talk about that in a little bit. C3 Group, Merlin Law Group, and Balance Claims R Supplement. You can check them out. There should be in the description below to help you guys out with anything that you might end up needing from this event here. Pretty major wind producer. You know, hasn't been the craziest hail year, but at this point, I guess some wind will do the trick. Let's see if we can get this. There we go. Got the roads loaded for you. Back over here, let's check out Freeport. Again, probably right here, center of town, right in there, north sides of town. That's likely where you saw that hail upwards of 2 inches in diameter. And that continues to move off to the north and east rather slowly in comparison to the winds that are currently happening now across a lot of rural western Illinois. It's going to be heading towards Sterling and Dixon, Illinois next. You can see the very bright returns here for our velocity. That's really showing the very strong winds blowing off to the east. And it's a very sharp cut. When you get the sharp cut off like that, that's when you really know those winds are absolutely no joke. They're props to the radar for surviving this. All right. Bring up, let's see what, let's look on Chicago. This might actually show up a little better on Chicago. Yep. Yeah, so for those of you who are wondering, there is indeed some hail. Hit Freeport. Looks like most of Freeport got hit with hail there. And this might make it to Rockford. We'll see. Again, these storms don't like to be hail producers for super long. They end up kind of falling apart to the line of storms, end up racing past them. Let's see. Any other wind reports? It doesn't look like we're going to see too many wind reports coming out for a little bit here while we have this system continuing to push off to the east, eventually towards the Chicago area. So what I think I'm going to do, run a couple ads, I'm going to drink some water. I'll be right back in a minute. We'll give you an update. I'm going to pretty much stick around, see what this does, if it makes it over to the Rockford area, and if not, I'm going to take a break, and we will come back in time for the Chicago area, and we'll stream all the way through Chicago. So I'll do this ad real quick. Again, shout out to our sponsors here for Merlin Law Group and Balance Claims, to our sponsors.
I've met with a lot of firms. I've had these situations before, but I haven't found anybody as good as Merlin and as dedicated to what they do. They're not here to make you happy. They're here to win.
We are supplementers and estimators for general contractors. It relieves some of that administrative burden of keeping it organized, making sure all the data's together, and allows them to go back to selling and producing jobs and making more money every year.
All right, guys, so we're back, and it looks like this hail is hanging out north of Freeport, or northeast of Freeport, and it's gonna probably, if it survives, if this course can survive, it'll make it up by Rockton and Roscoe, and possibly even into Wisconsin a little bit. But it looks like this thing is getting kind of messy here, as it is getting quickly caught up by the very strong winds. So you have the main wind event called a derecho racing about 70 miles an hour towards the supercell that is no hurry to go anywhere. So that is causing this thing to probably die out. Likely will not see too much hail beyond just in Freeport, where we did see some 2-inch hail. But these winds are absolutely nuts. Again, widespread winds over 70 miles an hour. Again, wouldn't be surprised, especially once we get a little closer to Sterling, Dixon, get a little more city centers impacted, or larger towns getting impacted. We'll see more wind reports coming in to help verify what we're seeing on radar here, because as we pull away from the radar, the winds are looking like they're getting stronger, but really they're just they're picking it up higher in the sky. So it's really just get that verification. Wow. Yeah, no, there's some wild wind damage pictures out of this. Let's see if I can let's get on Twitter. Yeah, dang it, I'm not signed in. Okay, well, I'll do that after the fact here, guys. When we take the break, I'll make sure I get logged into Twitter so we can check out some possible wind damage, especially as we move towards Chicago area. We've got a new warning now, just updated a moment ago, for 80-mile-an-hour winds. The strong winds may last for more than 30 minutes. Yes, so this isn't going to be just one gust. You know, a lot of storms we get is that one big gust of wind, and then after that it rains, and it's usually kind of weak. This is a different story. You get that strong gust of wind, and the wind gets stronger as the storm impacts. Again, the Davenport area, that initial gust, about 75 miles an hour. Then later on, they had 86-mile-per-hour winds coming in from the strong rain as well. And this warning is now all the way out to LaSalle and DeKalb County. So that means we are getting closer and closer. There's the big population behemoth that is Chicago, as we're going to be racing towards this in the next hour or so. So in the meantime, I'm going to take a bit of a break. We will come back. I'm going to get logged into the Twitter account on this computer, and we'll check out some photos as well when we come back, and we'll do coverage as this powerful system goes all the way across the Chicago Metro in a little bit. And what may end up being our first 5-star wind map that is not a hurricane. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will be back in a little bit.
Met Matt and Andrew several years ago. Just really awesome guys as far as giving the information, really making the industry better. They care about the contractors. They care about, really how the whole process works. And then they're very honest as far as when we have a claim, to give us their honest opinion as far as whether or not we want to pursue that or not. And then once they receive that claim, they really do a great job at following up with the homeowners, making sure that they're representing our company, because at the end of the day, our client is trusting us to put them in touch with the best in the industry.